Bright City fam, man, welcome back. My name is Rick, and I'm the pastor here at Bright City, where we believe the future is bright. Man, this year, God gave us a word, and last week, we talked a little bit about that word, and today, I want us to unpack the memory verse and get some context for the memory verse of the content, dig through all that good stuff that's found in that passage. But our word for 2021, anyone remember it? Consistent. Man, I want to be consistent. This word means showing steady conformity to character. Man, and the character that we want to conform to is the character of God. That's our word for 2021. Man, and it just feels good to say 2021 and not 2020, to be honest. But 2021 has still had some of its problems and has come with some issues. And so what does that look like for us to live within a faith that's consistent in a world that is going crazy right now? So 1 Corinthians 15:58, that's our memory verse for this year, the entire year. You got a whole year to memorize, and this is what it is. So, my dear brothers and sisters, be strong and immovable. Always work enthusiastically for the Lord, knowing that nothing you do for the Lord is ever useless. Man, I would love to be marked by that kind of faith, a faith that's always strong, a faith that's always immovable, a faith that is unshakable, a faith that is steadfast. I want to be marked by that kind of consistent, everyday faith, of everyday choosing to say, like, I'm gonna follow the Lord. Every single moment and nuance of life, in moments where things are normally like trigger point things, like where it might make me upset, or it might make me worried, or it might make me stressed, that my faith, that my life would be marked by consistent faith, even in those moments that often trigger a lack of faith. Does that make sense? Like, I want to be marked by that. And man, let's be real, like, life doesn't leave us mark free. It doesn't leave us unmarked, especially right now. Like, already this year has come with many challenges. And there might be many moments where you feel your faith is falling apart. Moments where you find it's hard to hope. Moments where you find your eyes drifting. And instead of prioritizing scripture, you're purposelessly scrolling. Man, 1 Corinthians 15:58 reminds us to always work. And man, and lately it takes work to worship. It takes work to be in the Word. And we have to be consistent. This passage, man, I just want us to go through kind of the context of what's happening in this passage. So Paul is writing this letter, 1 Corinthians, to a church in a major city called Corinth. And Corinth was a major city and had a bunch of Roman gods and a bunch of temples. And it was this big economic city. And Paul started a church right there in the city of Corinth. And after starting this church, Paul began traveling to other cities and starting other churches. But Paul began to hear about reports that was going on there in Corinth. And so he wrote this letter, 1 Corinthians. And that's where we find our memory verse. And in this letter, he discusses all kinds of divisions in the church. There's issues over sexual conduct. There's arguments over kosher foods. There's this growing belief in the church that Jesus' resurrection isn't necessary, or that Jesus' resurrection was false. And so Paul's writing this letter in that context. So this, like, so my dear brothers and sisters, be strong and immovable, always work enthusiastically for the Lord, knowing that nothing you do for the Lord is ever useless. He's writing that within the context of this major city and in this church that he was a part of, that he loved dearly, and that he was hearing that there was divisions in the church, because we know there's never divisions and debates and arguments in church, right? Like, he hears about this, and so he writes about it. And so he discusses all of these issues by first stating the problem, but he always follows it up by sharing the good news, which, man, there are so many problems right now going on in our world. And the question is, how do we respond with problems today? Paul heard about these problems and he would state the problem, but his response was the good news. How do we respond to the problems today? With good news. Let me clarify. With the good news, the gospel. Jesus, who he is, what he did, why it's important and relevant to everyone today. That's how Paul responds in this letter to all the things that are going wrong in the life of this church that he was a part of starting. He responds with good news. That's crazy. And man, I just want us to go through some of these words and do a word study in this memory verse. And so this word, be strong. So my dear brothers, be strong. This word strong, your translation, like it says, be steadfast, be firm. King James versions, y'all, be ye steadfast, right? Like we gotta bring that back. This word steadfast is staying firm in your purpose. Man, what's my purpose? And we're gonna get to that a little bit later. But be strong, be firm, be steadfast, be ye steadfast. To make it even more King James-ish, I'd say like, be ye steadfasteth. I digress. The word implies that you never arrive at being strong. So keep becoming strong. Man, I know that in a lot of what we've experienced in 2020 and this year, that it's difficult to find God and his goodness and his faithfulness. And it's easy to lose sight of the importance of faith, of keeping faith in God. And it's tempting to drift into doubt. Be strong. Do you struggle with doubt? Do you struggle with God being good in the midst of a lot of bad? So, my dear brothers and sisters, keep becoming strong. The best answer to your doubt is work. So, my dear brothers and sisters, be strong and immovable. Always work. Keep becoming strong. That's how you overcome and get through doubt. So some more words in this passage, in this memory verse. So my dear I'm gonna repeat a lot, and I'm gonna repeat the memory verse a lot, only for the aim that we can memorize it. So I'm gonna keep going through it. So my dear brothers and sisters, be strong. The next word I want us to focus on is immovable. So my dear brothers and sisters, be strong and immovable. This word immovable is this purpose that we have in the Lord. And man, this purpose, what it's saying here is work. Your purpose is to work for the Lord. That's the whole point of this passage, is if you're working for other stuff, that's not what this is talking about. You can't apply this to a business plan in the sense that God's gonna allow me to be strong in my business for that to be the ends of that venture. Does that make sense? Your work, we're all called to one purpose, and it's to work for the Lord. That's crazy. What's your purpose? To work for the Lord. So be strong and immovable. Don't change your purpose. Be immovable. Don't change your purpose. Okay, so my dear brothers and sisters, be strong and immovable. Always work enthusiastically. Some translations say excel in the work of the Lord. Be strong and immovable. Always work enthusiastically for the Lord. This means to be it might say to exceed in the work of the Lord, or always excelling in the work. It just means that all the work that you're doing, you are exceeding the ordinary and you're overflowing in the work of God, that like this image of being exceedingly furnished with. Always work enthusiastically for the Lord, or abounding in the work of the Lord. Like when people see you, that you're marked by that kind of faith, because you're always working, but it's not that you're just working, but you're abounding in that work. Work enthusiastically for the Lord. To like overflow in God's work. Bro, I would love to be that way. So, my dear brothers, you got it yet? Be strong and immovable. Always work enthusiastically for the Lord. So we've looked at be strong. We've looked at immovable, that our purpose never changes. That the work is for the Lord. But I want us to look at the word work. So, my dear brothers and sisters, be strong and immovable. Always work. For some of us, man, that might be like, that's a curse word, work. Always work. Yes, God calls us to rest, but he commands us to work. And this word work, it's derived from a word that means to hit or to strike something so hard that it seriously weakens or debilitates. The work should hurt. And that is off-putting, to think that as we work for the Lord, that it should hurt. And that's what it's saying here, that the work should hurt. That it's not faith if there's no trial by fire, to always work. And the work is intense work, marked with trouble, with pain, with loss, with heartache. Work, our purpose. The word implies weariness, that you will be weary in the work. The work that God called us to and called you to is tiring. There are moments in life where we are tired in the midst of our faith. In the world that we're experiencing right now, in the culture that's happening right now, are you weary? Are you tired? Man, I have a really bad habit of not eating breakfast. And sometimes I'll skip lunch too. But as I find as I'm working throughout the day, like my hands will start to like shake a lot. You ever get that way? And I'll start to feel a little dizzy. I'll start to get a little sweaty. I'll start to feel really, really weak. And Amy will always ask me, have you eaten? Rick, you gotta eat, bro. Like, that's the problem. You need to stop what you're doing and you need to go eat. It's because she knows that the one thing I should be doing and the one thing that I should have done is eat before I work, is to gain sustenance while I'm working. Because if I'm just working without the food, without the meat, without the sustenance, without the nutrients, without what I need, the food, I become weary and weak. Taste and see that the Lord is good. The work makes us, it's tiring work. It's hard work. The fight for faith, man, like that is tough work. And have you been having a tough time keeping the faith, being steadfast, being immovable? Have you had a hard time always being enthusiastic in the work of the Lord? Have you had a hard time abounding in the work of the Lord? Because this work makes you weary. But if you're weary and never in the word, then it becomes increasingly more difficult to do the work. Always work enthusiastically for the Lord. To do the work without ever consuming the word, man, gets our focus dizzy, where we don't fix our eyes on God. And instead of setting our mind on scripture, we're setting it on scrolling. Consume the word. Weariness necessitates the word. You being tired in your faith, like a thorn in the flesh, this nagging thing of being weary. Weariness necessitates you going into the word. And what's crazy is it's cyclical. It's not just going to the word and not just getting more information. It's not just being a hearer of the word, but a worker, a doer. Always work. And it's saying the work should hurt. That it's not faith if it's not tried by fire. Paul's saying you will be tired in this work of the Lord. That's what Paul says. You will be tired. And Jesus says, when you're tired from the work, when you're troubled, take heart. Because I have overcome everything that you're seeing fall apart in culture. I've already overcome the world. Are you tired? Tired from the work of the Lord? Take heart. The world that comes with all its challenges and trouble and pain and heartache. The one who plants, the one who waters, they work together for the same purpose, and both will be rewarded for their own hard work. Are you weary from the work? Paul says he uses this word work of toil and trouble and pain. That's what that word work is entailing in it. That it will make you weary. Are you weary in this fight to keep the faith, to be steadfast in your faith, to be consistent in your faith? Are you tired? You have moments where you're like, man, it would be really easy just to not try to have faith. Like I would be less stressed. I remember at one point in my faith of like struggling in one part where I was having this thought process of like, I think that trying to have faith in God gives me more anxiety and stress than if I didn't believe in him. In 1 Corinthians 15:58 would say, yeah, it's work. Are you tired of fighting for your faith? Are you weary from the work of keeping faith, being consistent in your faith? Paul says, always work enthusiastically for the Lord. Implying that it will make you weary. Jesus says, are you weary? Come to me. This is what makes him so good. That you may feel like it would be easier to ditch your faith and just live life without any faith in God. You may feel like being a part of a community, talking about faith or sharing your faith gives you so much anxiety that you'd rather opt out. Are you weary? Jesus is so good that he says, I will give you rest. Man, although this work to keep the faith is hard, there's a promise. that he will give you rest. So let us not grow tired of doing what is good. Because we know at just the right time we'll reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up, if we're consistent in our faith. Man, God's not surprised by our trials and our pains. We live in a broken world. It's marked by sin. But in the midst of pain, God doesn't abandon us. In fact, he has a plan in place for us to persevere by the power of his Spirit and to make us mature in our faith. Man, this is what's happening, that a seed has to die to grow the plant, that this is what has to happen in our faith, that it's not faith if it's not tried by fire, that we have to be able to walk through these things and always abound in the work of the Lord, to always work enthusiastically for the Lord. Man, pain and suffering, these are essential ingredients to growth in your faith. Now, we have to be careful to not mark or boil everything down of Christianity to this suffering faith all the time, or a suffering existence. That's not what it is at all. It's, are you weary? Come to me and I give you rest. That's the good, stinking news, man. That when we experience hardship, when we see the brokenness of the world and its systems, we're considered to count it all joy. That these should serve as reminders as our hope is beyond fulfillment in this world. That I'm not fulfilled in this world. That I'm not okay with what's going on, but my hope's not in it either. That we don't despair without hope. That there will be hardships, but it's not without hope. Man, and that a prayer should be that God would remind us to look at the trials that we're going through the lens of our faith. That all of these hardships are necessities to growing your faith. So, my dear brothers, be strong and immovable. Always work enthusiastically for the Lord. For you know that nothing you do for the Lord is ever useless. I remember in that moment of I feel like it would be thinking that it would be less stressful to not believe in God anymore than it would, I felt like trying to believe in God gave me a lot of stress. And it felt like working through that moment in my faith was what's the point? And now, today, I know that season of my life is not useless. I know that working out of my faith then is bearing fruit now. So, my dear brothers and sisters, be strong and immovable. Always work enthusiastically for the Lord. For you know that nothing you do for the Lord is ever useless. Be strong. Be steadfast. Immovable. Unchanging in your purpose. And what's your purpose? To always work enthusiastically for the Lord. Purpose. And there's this story in the Bible where Jesus is surrounded by this crowd, and it happens often, and this crowd's following him, and they want to know their purpose in life. And they're asking, why am I here? What's the meaning of all this? Why am I here? And so they're with Jesus and they ask him, they say, we want to perform God's works too. What should we do? We want to work. What should we do? And Jesus responds by saying, this is the work God wants from you. And I imagine as the crowd hears Jesus say this, like, you want to know? Here's what it is. That they're like leaning in, like, is it miracles? Speaking in tongues? Is it the gift of prophecy? Is it building a great business? Is it being a good person? We want to be a part of having we want to have purpose. How do we do that? And Jesus says, this is how you do it. Believe. What's your purpose in life? Why are you here? Why would the sun and moon and seasons shift for trees to grow? Why does that even matter? Why does that happen? Why are we here? Like, why does the world create, why does the earth create this perfect blend and balance of oxygen and levels for me to wake up every day and breathe? Why? You may be thinking, like, what's my purpose? Why am I here? Like, and why do I even care what my purpose is? Why do I have this burning desire in my chest to understand why I exist? You feel that way because God placed His purpose, your purpose, in your heart. That He set eternity in your heart. Why are you here? What's the point? What's your purpose? Believe. May the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make His face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up His countenance upon you and give you peace.